What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy, the D20, and welcome you to the first episode of what will now and forever be known as Shonen Showdown. Let me do a little bit to explain what's going to happen. Every day the chapters come out, of course, Weekly Shonen Jump, which isn't actually all that weekly, world events, Golden Week holidays, brilliant authors wanting to take a break, that whole thing. But anyway, Shonen Showdown is where I take the week's chapters and do a showdown. I read them, I review them, and then I will give my general thoughts on which chapter was the best and my general thoughts on each chapter. This series will mainly, at least for the time being, consist of 3 series. Yuki Tabasa's shonen hit, Black Clover, Kohei Horikoshi's hit shonen series, My Hero Academia, and not gonna lie, my personal favorite shonen series and manga series of all time, One Piece, by the brilliant Eiichiro Oda. Now, I'm going to be judging these chapters based on a few criteria that are subject to change. The art style, well, not the art style, but the visual aesthetics of the chapter at hand, how good the fight scenes are, details of things, which even though all 3 of these men, well, I believe they're all men, excuse me if Tabata is a female, but I believe Tabata is a man from what I looked up, but all of them are masters of their craft, especially when it comes to drawing. But that will, because some chapters are more visually appealing than others. Their overall connection to the story, like how do they move their respective stories forward? Because hey, some chapters, and that one will be a little bit more loose because even though a chapter may not be fight heavy, it's still got a chance to actually move the needle of the series quite a bit, and just the way it made me feel. The third was kind of tricky because it's like the impact. Well, which one was just the most? Well, excuse me. The third is which one's most entertaining. And I'm doing one take on the intro, so look, that's just how we're rolling with it. But yes, those are the 3 current criteria which are subject to change. Like either take away, change, or add more. So it's going to be the aesthetics of the chapter, visually at least, how they move the needle forward for their respective series, and how entertaining they were. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me. This is your boy, the D20, and welcome to well, you know the reference, Shonen Showdown. All right, first up is going to be Black Clover, page 259, Raging Bull Unison. Okay, now picking up from where the last chapter left off, Asta had went inside and talked to the demon inside him and asked it for more power. He said pretty much something to the same effect. We've seen this in Naruto, which happened much later in the series. But pretty much, hey, I should have had this conversation with you before, and would you grant me your power? And it starts off with the demon telling him that the power that he's granted him, which has taken over his left arm, not his left arm, his right arm. The power that has taken over his right arm, it's emanating black anti-magic. And the devil itself even told him, hey, in order to give you power, I'm actually going to have to, instead of just dwelling in your sword and kind of being in your body, kind of dwelling there, I'm going to actually need to possess part of your body. So the chapter starts out with the demon telling him, hey, the amount of power that I've given you is only going to last 50 seconds, so not even a minute. And you can see Asta rush Dante with his demon dweller sword in his right hand, emanating the black anti-magic. All right, and they continue their assault on the devil-possessed Dante. Yet again, he's flinging rocks, they're dodging, and he is just not having it. And he's being slashed, and he finally notices that, hey, if this hits me, I'm gonna die. He's using his body magic, and which is his true magic. And the gravity magic is the devil's magic that it's allowing him to use. But the body magic that he's using to mutate is actually his own magic. And he's fighting back. He uses gravity magic to make 4 swords. I think that would be the gravity infighting or the gladiator spell, whichever one he used about a couple chapters ago before Asta entered the fight. He comments on how Asta's done well, to actually injure him. And Yami's thinking, he's really watched out for Asta's attacks. And that's where he's kind of starting to formulate that, hey, Asta's the key to this. And yet again, he's mutating his body, sending out the tendrils, kind of trying to disarm them at this point. And Yami comes to the conclusion, hey, we can win. Yet again, Asta's the key. If Asta can land a clean hit on him, we can do this. So he then begins to press Dante harder as Asta, reacts like, hey, that's what I'm supposed to do, and continues to pull forward. Finral then begins to comment on how they're moving in sync. And I'm just gonna go ahead and be honest here, out of the 3 chapters this week, I honestly have to say this one is definitely the most visually appealing. The fight scene, them moving, the black against black contrast. But yes, and I know, because one thing I've had to say about Black Clover the anime is that animation has been on point, especially for the big moments. But one thing I really kind of have to say that's kind of weird, like every time something happens in Black Clover, if somebody gets pushed against a wall, something gets slashed, everything turns into cubes. Doesn't matter what happens, like so if somebody hits the ground, the rest of the ground that's affected will float up and it just burst into cubes. So believe me, I can see that all these rocks that are these like unique shapes of like just earth, they're gonna be cubes. They're gonna be cubes. But yes, you have Asta and Yami going against Dante, and yet again, with no set plan, they are actually moving in unison and really pressing him. And not Yami, but Dante is thinking to himself, hey, I'm gonna crush y'all, I'm gonna win. And yet again, he continues to send out the tendrils. He's continuing to mutate and trying to disarm Asta. And as Asta says 8 seconds, his demon, Dante is actually able to disarm him of his demon dweller sword and knock it out of his hands. And then Asta tries to use his grimoire to go for the demon destroyer, but yet again, Dante's pretty much got the idea. Okay, if he doesn't have a sword, this is pretty much Ove. Not Demon Slayer, not Demon Destroyer, not Demon Dweller. As long as he can keep those 3 swords away from him, he feels as though he's won. But then Yami uses his death thrust to pretty much take out all of Dante's torso and chest to immobilize him. And even then, Dante is thinking he's indestructible. He's not going to lose. He can't lose. And, it's over. Y'all aren't going to win. But then Yami has a brilliant idea. If Asta doesn't have a sword, I'll give him a sword. So Yami then gives Asta his katana, and then Asta channels his anti-magic through it, and then lands a diagonal blow on Dante's chest, which knocks him out and is the final blow. Okay. Thoughts about this chapter? It was good. It was entertaining. Now, the only thing that I have to kind of critique this chapter on is pretty much it moves the story forward, but not in a meaningful way, I would say. That's definitely something I would have to take points off, because I've liked this fight, don't get me wrong, and I really wish I had been reviewing chapters when this fight first started, when Yami came back and he started using some of his more advanced moves. But as far as the fight itself, beyond just this chapter, it's been good. Although I'm not gonna lie, especially with the break we took when we went to see Luck and the others, Leopold, and even not Vanessa, but Noelle and old girl from Golden Dawn, I can't remember her name right now, but it's kind of drug on me. And at least this fight, which is, the only thing that this fight's really pushed forward was the goal of them, which is to get William Vongis's World Tree magic, the Yggdrasil magic, and Yami's Darkness magic, so they can use the Kill Fort tree and open the door to the underworld. But to further expound upon what I mean, this chapter, it pushed Asta's abilities forward. Pretty much, it's like, okay, Asta can actually channel his anti-magic, and the devil possession, it's not perfect, and he's getting closer with his devil. But as far as the story at large, this fight really doesn't push it doesn't push the narrative forward. The story itself, the Black Clover narrative at large, has been pushed forward. But we do get to see Asta and Yami, they busted out abilities, and he, like I said, in this chapter, he's communicating with his demon openly, and he can channel anti-magic into other objects, specifically weapons in this case. So Asta is able to use his anti-magic powers without just having his swords. And this is something that I've kind of speculated for a while, especially after I saw Black Clover. I believe it was episode 100, I believe, when Asta and Yuno went up against Licht, and we're seeing an anime form, because I read the chapter when it was new, but seeing it in anime kind of made it kind of made it really stick out. Pretty much what I mean is, Asta, when we got to see Licht fight, we got to see what Asta would be capable of in the future. Yet again, not so much as with, the mana sensing and the melt, and how he was so fast, he could melt into the air and appear, which yet again, when Asta perfects his fighting skills, he'll be capable of feats like that. But in this case, how Licht was able to use the swords, especially the Demon Dweller sword. He used that bitch to perfection, and I'm telling you, I can't wait for Asta to really get a handle on that sword. Ever since he came back from the time skip, the 6-month time skip, he's definitely improved. But as far as the finer points of the swords, beyond him surfing on the Demon Slayer, I think his powers are pretty lacking. But at least right now, we're starting to see more of him be able to use his anti-magic outside of just his swords. Like how when his homies, the possessed elves, the Golden Dawn guys, the Glass guy, rest in peace, and Klaus, when they were knocked back by Asta and Yuno, how he was able to catch them using his mana rather than actually using his hands. So I think that we're moving that direction. We can expect more things like that. As far as what's to come next, I don't think Dante's dead. I definitely could believe it. I don't think he's dead. I think they're gonna try to get some information out of him, and we could potentially cut back to one of the other fights. But as far as the chapter goes, I definitely enjoyed it. Visually, it's out of the 3 chapters this week, it's definitely the most kinetic. But at the same time, it sacrificed substance kind of for Flash. So we didn't get as much, the needle didn't move much in terms of the story, like those are chapters prior to this that moved it. But yet again, not a bad chapter at all. So that has been this section of Shonen Showdown for Black Clover chapter, or as they call it, page 259. Next, right along, next is going to be Kohei Horikoshi's My Hero Academia, coming in at number 279, League of Villains versus UA Students. Now the chapter opens up in the forest where we see Mudman coming out of the ground after using his quirk there, and we see part of Lizardy, Setsuna Tokage. She comes up, grabs him by the shoulders, with the part of her body that you see is actually missing. It's like her torso, pretty much just like her midriff, her boobs, arms, and up until right above her nostrils, grabbing him and speaking to him. And she's telling him, hey, we need to go ahead and get out of here. Gigant's Machina, that giant beast is coming. That thing that's, beating up all the pro heroes is coming for us next. Well, not coming for them. It's trying to get past them, but yet again, they don't know that. And he might as well be, because he's probably going to kill some people trampling over them. Now, Mudman, Juzo, excuse me, he's, asking her, like, hey, do you think Mononoma's group is okay? And she's like, hey, look, I'm worried about them too, but this is not the time. We got our own shit to deal with. And then you can see the top of half of her head, along with her hair, looking at Giganto barreling towards them, which you gotta think, this man is probably about 15 plus times bigger than a human. So yeah, this shit's kind of scary. But then on the next page, you see, Mina, Kirishima, Tendo, and various other class 1A and 1B students all preparing, for what's about to happen. And then you can also see that a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them have these canisters of what is about to be explained is a sedative. And then they're also, in the panel, in a thought bubble, blue fire was coming off of his back. As they saw earlier, they saw the blue fire combating the hero. So they're all like, okay, not only do we have to deal with his big ass, but we also got to deal with the League of Villains. And yet again, for a bunch of first, I don't even think they're second year students yet. Yet again, the way the Japanese do school, it makes more sense, but yet again, as an American, it's kind of weird to me. So they're all thinking like, okay, so we gotta try to sedate this big motherfucker, and then we gotta deal with them. And it's like, shit. But moving right along, we see Momo. She's talking about the sedative and how they're gonna have to do the dosage. Now, she says that ordinarily with this sedative, you want to inject it, but yet again, with him moving and being as big and strong as he is, there's no way you're just gonna be like, hey, let's inject this shit into you. It's not happening. So what you see is, and if you're reading the chapter, you can follow along, is that it looks like she has stuff coming out of her chest. Yet again, the way Horikoshi draws this, and then you can see them setting up the plan to stop him. They got ropes that were most likely produced by Yaomomo, and then Minetta's balls, strung throughout the forest. So that's probably how they're going to do it. Now, what they're saying is that yet again, because they can't inject him, they're going to have to give him an oral dose. And with, luckily with the canisters, which are full of the sedative, it's a single vial's worth should prove pretty effective. It's undiluted, so they're pretty much gonna throw this stuff, not gonna cut it or anything, and just throw it in his mouth. So that's what they're aiming for. And then at the towards the bottom left, Mineta, he's looking pretty nervous, and he's asking, pretty much thinking out loud to himself, and just asking the group like, "Hey guys, Midnight's alive, right?" And then Mina comes in with quickness. Of course, she's got plenty to teach us. Now, just giving my thoughts on this, I'm not sure. I don't think she's dead. It's been a while since I read the last chapter, so I can't. So I could be wrong. I don't think they're gonna kill Midnight off just yet, but Mina's take on this, I think it's more so rooted in naive optimism rather than fact. Now, I don't think it's like, hey, bruh, she's not dead according to these calculations, her stats and whatnot. I think it's more so she just doesn't want to pretty much entertain the possibility of her being dead. But moving right along, we see a panel of Kamui Woods and Mount Lady being drugged through the forest by Giganto, and like he's not stopping. It'd be different if she was like wrestling with him, like, kind of holding him back, but she's being drugged by her stomach. And I think Kamui Woods, I think he might be unconscious or he's barely conscious. And, and I think she's talking to him. She's like, hey, he's not stopping. Wake up, senpai, loosen your grip so I can get back up. I think she's talking to Kamui Woods, who's on her head, so he can move his wooden vines and branches to, let her up. So then in the next panel, the heroes are observing him, and, he's continuing to move, but then all of a sudden he starts to drop. You can even see Compress and Toga on his back. They start to kind of float in midair. They're on his back, and, when he falls, they weren't holding on tight. They're gonna like hesitate for a minute in midair and stop. And Yaomomo, she's reacting like watching it, like, okay, it's going down as planned. Because, like I said, when I first spoke about how, they were, Mudman and Lizardy were preparing for a plan, he saw from the earth. So even though, he's moving right along, he pretty much walked into a swamp, and it looks like Mudman, he lowered it pretty deep, because it looks like he's up to his torso. So that's a lot of earth there, because, Giganto's a big boy. All right, so then you got the students, yelling, hey, right on target, and they start to rush him. And then you got, what is her name? Maria, also, Vine, her other hero name was Maria. Her Vine, Vine girl, the girl with the thorny vines that come out of her hair, she begins to wrap the vines around his neck, as the other students, they try to use the ropes with the balls on them. So they attach they attach them, to his chin, and they're about to try to pull his mouth open. So as he's trying to lift up, it kind of works against him because the students with strength quirks are starting to try to pull. Because you see Sugar Rush, Tendo, Big Fist, and the Beast guy from 1B. You see them trying to pretty much pull his jaw open, and it looks like they're about to have some success. But then Compress and Toga are like, okay, it's UA, but they're pretty much used to just dealing with Class 1A, so they're like, why are there so many kids? Not knowing that, it's Class 1B too. So yet again, Sho and a couple of the others start to rush, because yet again, they knew they were back there, and, it'd be foolish to think that they're just gonna let Giganto be taken out. So they start to rush, with Dabi noticing, and with that, you start to see Kaminari, I forgot his name for a quick second. You start to see Kaminari's targets go, and a couple of them attached to the villains, and even not just to the villains, but around them as well. And he's about to prepare one of his charge bolts to pretty much keep from attacking his friends. He can't control electricity, he can only produce it. So he's like, okay, I'm just gonna take you out. But then you notice some debris that starts smacking him away. And then you see Mr. Compress, who is able to knock him out and knock away some of the targets. Because yet again, they noticed him early in the villa when he redirected that lightning attack from that league guy. But he also notes to the others, hey, I've used up all my seeds. His marbles that he uses to compress things, so he's got no more. And then while Kaminari is trying to rush them, the other students, they're yet again trying to feed Giganto, whatever. They're trying to feed Makia the sedative canisters, but unfortunately they're stopped because he then his mouth's a little bit open, but he blows them away, which causes a huge storm, which blows most of them back. I mean for miles. And then Dabi puts up a shield of fire to kind of help, keep them at bay. And then Dabi notes a quirk that transforms morale into physical power, and another that renders him numb to pain, and a whole bunch more. All those quirks help him last on the battlefield. And then it's just, which I don't think was ever mentioned, what quirks he had. We know like enhanced durability, super strength, things like that. So it turns out that the more motivated he is for something, which in this case would be protecting his master, will power him up, and then he can't feel pain. So not only is he durable as shit, so you can't really hurt him, but even if you were able to do something that should cause him pain, not happening. So they're pretty much noticing like, damn, he really is the perfect guard. This is why he was the all for one's main guy, because with all those quirks, he's pretty much unfucking stoppable. So all the kids, they're getting up, they're getting their bearings, and they're trying, because even Shroom and Tokoyami, they're trying to use their powers. But thanks to the wall of flames, Shroom, her spores that she sprayed in the air trying to see if her mushrooms can do anything, they're being burned. And then the light coming off of the flame, it's weakening Tokoyami's dark shadow. And then with that, yet again, as he's getting his bearing, Makia starts to fall again. Because not only did she have Mudman soften the ground, but they also implanted explosives beneath that, so to give them just an extra layer of protection. And it's like, hey, we still stand. But then Spinner comments, hey, we still stand a chance. Pretty much, apparently, from what he says, Makia, he's pretty much, I think, just about faster at digging than he is at walking. So, Spinner is thinking like, okay, we'll just dig then. You're actually helping us out. He doesn't have to expend the energy to dig. But Compress quickly chimes in like, that's not a good idea. That's going to kill us. We can't just pass through Earth and barrel through it. But, well, then he goes on to elaborate. He was likely ordered to bring them along. And since he has that restriction, like, okay, I'm bound to do my master's bidding, I gotta bring them along, but I have to bring them alive. So he's limited in his battle capabilities for having to bring them along. So he's kind of like trying to get his bearings, but then you see Mount Lady come and grab his upper jaw, well, his upper and lower jaw, and try to pry his mouth open. And then you see the heroes come to provide backup to the kids. So they're being rushed from behind as well. And then Mount Lady, she's thinking about it while she's battered and bruised. She was like, okay, she was watching. Luckily she wasn't unconscious. She was like, okay, the kids, they were trying to put something in his mouth. So shit, I'm gonna go ahead and help. So she pries his mouth open, and the chapter ends with her saying that she thinking like, okay, I believe in you kids, you can do this. And then we see a shot of Mina with a big jelly acid thing lunging, which she's most likely lunging towards Makia. Now, I know her power is acid, but it's quite possible that she came out with this jelly stuff to kind of mix with the sedative so she can feed it to him. In terms of this chapter, I really do like My Hero as a series. This chapter, honestly, looked great. It's still for the action that there was, it's very kinetic. It's very, fast paced. But the only thing is, this really didn't move the needle on the series. It looked great, but it wasn't really much of a fight as much as them just trying to pry his mouth open. Which, in the past, some of the things that they've done, in order to avoid fighting, or not necessarily fighting, but some of the actions they've taken, in these big schemes, especially, making use of multiple powers at one time to accomplish a goal, are really cool, such as them trying to get Bakugo out of Camino Ward with the big ice shelf, and then Bakugo coming and either using his jet engine quirk. But as far as like moving the needle on the series, this one didn't really do much for me. It's not a bad chapter at all, but I'm definitely gonna say this is a low point for this particular arc. Hell, especially this particular moment. While Tomura Shigaraki, well, he's got multiple quirks. He's the new One for All Witch. Well, All for One. That's gonna happen. Which I gotta make a video about that. That is amazing, and I am glad I called it. But I'll go into that more soon when that happens. But I mean, as far as like really moving the series forward, didn't really do much. We learned about a couple of Makia's quirks, specifically the power to turn morale into his physical energy, actually, and his numbness to pain, which aren't cool powers. And then we already have multiple powers. But as far as that, it was good to see, some of the Class 1B kids get some shine. There was some good back and forth with the league. But as far as within the chapters, within the grander story itself, this chapter really didn't do anything really. Not bad, but more so middle of the road. But I'd definitely say good chapter. It's filling time. It's not bad, but it's not doing anything for me. So I'll definitely say it was there. And sometimes being there isn't a bad thing. And yet again, right here, it's not a bad thing per se, but it's definitely not doing anything for me. So with that has been number 279, League of Villains versus UA Students. On to the next one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and with that, we've come to our last chapter of the week, which is going to be One Piece by Eiichiro Oda Sensei. One Piece, chapter 986, My Name. All right, the chapter opens up in the aftermath of the battle at the rear of Onigashima. And you can see there are minks and samurai who are cheering. They're wishing Kinemon and Denjiro the best of luck, because as you know, Kinemon went around in the whirlpool with Law and a couple of the other scabbards, while Denjiro himself actually, I believe he climbed one of the mountains yet again, because if you guys look at Onigashima, the way the island faces the reader isn't just a north, south, east, west kind of thing. He climbed on the mountain, he met up. That's why there are minks and samurai there. But you can see that Kanjuro appears to be dead, and I say that in quotes, lying in the pool of his own blood. And then Kinemon and Denjiro, they greet each other with a solemn like a huff as they walk towards the entrance gate with the other scabbards lined up. And this is a really cool shot because you can see like the level of respect they have in contrast with the other scabbards. Not saying that if it had been Inarashi and Nekamushi, they wouldn't have done it, but you can really see that these two, like, they're kind of like the big men on campus when compared with the other scabbards. And then what kind of makes this a little harder, you can see with the, one of the panels with them remembering, with them all being younger than Odin, with Kinemon being the only one close in age to him. I believe, yeah, I think Kinemon was the only one who was really close in age to him. You can see them all laughing, you know, them talking about how much money they have, you know, what they're gonna eat for dinner. Odin just laughing and smiling away, and you can see Kanjuro reaching for Kawamatsu as he's trying to duel a young dog storm in Inarashi with his brush. All right, we then see Kinemon. He's looking down at Kanjuro's corpse. Yet again, air quotes whenever I talk about that. And you know, he's thinking the words again. Yeah, ha ha ha. I don't know if he like I said, I don't know if that's meant to be Kanjuro saying it to him saying it to Kanjuro like in a friendly way, if that's supposed to be, because I don't remember when Kanjuro first revealed everything to him, like what he said or whatever, but he's thinking about those words. And yet again, Kanjuro is face down, his corpse is face down in the snow, but then you can see Kikunojo, she's got on her mask and everything, but she is bawling because you can see it clearly from the mask, and Raizo is openly sobbing. And then King Kinemon, like baller as he is, G shit truly, he takes off his Kasa hat and places it on Kanjuro's corpse's face to kind of cover him up, like pretty much like, you know, how somebody like in movies and other things, like somebody goes and closes the eyes of a corpse, or they like put a sheet over it, and then he's like, hey guys, I know it's been hard for you all. And then you see Denjiro and Kinemon, they're like, wait a minute, is that Izo? Because yet again, you gotta remember, they didn't know they were they didn't know he was there. He was on a separate he was separate from them, so you know, it's like, oh, it's our boy. Yet again, Mr. We haven't seen him in 20 years because he was all palling around with the White Beard crew. Which, speaking of which, just to make a side note, at the end of this review, I want to talk about the whole 20-year thing. Because I know in the community, I know Tekking, Mr. Morge, Joy Boy, and a lot of people in One Piece community have been talking about how the hell this happened. And separate from the review of this, I want to touch on that, but we'll get there. But yet again, they dap up, you know, the handshake, you know, and then Kinemon's pretty much like, hey, hey man, you know, like, you know, this is where you're making your last stand. And then, you know, Izo's like, hey man, hold up, I made a mistake, and I just want to go ahead and, you know, before we continue, Kinemon, he was with Luffy and them, so him and Denjiro went around while the other scabbards were on the thing with Law, and I think that's where they got picked up and they saw Marco and them. And yeah, so never mind. So that's why they didn't see Izo, because they weren't with him. Anyway, but yeah, so like, hey, because Kinemon's like, so this is where you've chosen to make your last stand, with Izo being like, hey, I missed too many chances for glory, you know, a gloriful death. Very well, Kinemon says, clutching his swords. Let's hurry. And yet again, as they proceed on, you see them going through the gates and into the actual palace with sliding doors. And yet again, you see the aftermath of the battle, the beast pirates and samurai who went back there, and yet again, Kanjuro's quote-unquote corpse. But then, you hear a thunderous boom. Choose, Samurai of Orochi. Will you die like your liege, or will you conquer this world with us? We go back to the main hall, where Kaido is yet again addressing, continuing where he left off in the last chapter. He's addressing the samurai. He continues with the ultimatum. You're pretty much, and yet again, just to fill that in, you're either gonna join us or you're gonna die. Yet again, Kaido, he then says, you know, he's familiar with samurai loyalty. And, you know, hey, he knows, like, I've heard about y'all. I know y'all are greasy loyal to the end. He's like, and he even says, if you choose to fight us and die, I give you my praise. You've earned my respect. But he quickly learns this isn't the case, because Fukurokujo, the captain of the Oniwanbachu, Orochi's ninja force, who has 5,000 members, and then Hote, who's the former captain of the, and try not to fuck this up, Mimiwaregumi. Got this shit on first try. Bro, they flip on his dead ass. Like, it wasn't even like they had any pain expressions. They flipped on him the instant. They said that shit with a quickness. And then you can see the Onawabachu, the ninja members, they're thinking in their heads like, thank God he didn't go the other way, because we'd have died. And even a couple of samurai, they're like, well, a couple of the other members, they're like, you know, dang, that's really fucked up what happened to Orochi. Well, oh well. I mean, that's just the way it goes. And then, you know, one of the members of the Beast, they're like, hey, you know, it's good. We didn't want to have to fight y'all anyway. And then this says a lot about who Hyogoro is as a person, because he sees this and he has to be restrained. One of his underlings has to restrain him. Have you no warrior's pride? So pretty much, even though he hated Orochi, killed his wife, and I think he had kids, and he killed them too, if he had kids. I know his wife died by the hands of Orochi. And then this shit. And then he watched this man be betrayed by the people who actually sided with him. He gets to watch this man's comeuppance, and he's still mad. That's G shit. That shows that even though he hated Orochi, he, like, because I'm not gonna lie, chat. Well, I'm not gonna lie, y'all. If this was me and I saw that, I'd have been like, motherfucker gets what he deserves. I'd have held no ill will. But he's so ingrained in his culture, in the pride of the warrior, he had to be restrained. Now, yet again, I'm not saying I would have just condoned it, but real talk, like, I would have laughed. Like, that's what you get. But this man was so angry, but by the fact that he witnessed the samurais, such a disgraceful act on behalf of the samurai, he just couldn't do it. And that's to be commended. But continuing on, Big Mom, you know, she comments on the situation. Okay, so that problem, like the whole question of who's with us, who's not, is, you know, dealt with. Then she throws the girls, Nami and Carrot, to her homies so they can be restrained. So Nami's, you know, getting choked out by a three-eyed, it looks like a three-eyed piece of food, not gonna lie. And Nami thinks to herself, you know, since Shinobu wasn't caught, they can still save Momo. You know, she's not even mad that, you know, Shinobu dipped. And even then, we see Shinobu, you know, dash to the crowd without being noticed. And even she says that she's sorry, but she knows this is the best course of action. And then Shinobu thinks to herself, you know, Lord Odin, you know, because I'm not gonna lie, when it came to this whole thing with Orochi and Kaido, the way Odin handled it, I did kind of hate that. It was hard to watch. You know, him pretty much gets screwed over time and time again trying to be civil. But even Shinobu realizes that, you know, Orochi, Odin saw Orochi for what he was. He was the tough guy's front. He was a front. He was never a real threat. Orochi was a bitch from jump. It was Kaido who was the real threat, and even Shinobu, you know, she muses on it like, yeah, Odin was right. Odin knew it wasn't Orochi who was the problem. I think if Kaido hadn't been involved, they could have went to war with Orochi. But it was really Kaido who was keeping Orochi held up. So, you know, there's that. You know, everybody's realizing like, okay, so pretty much nothing changes. Okay, we knew from jump, and our master knew from jump. Orochi was just a figurehead. Kaido's been the real problem this whole time. So then Kaido busts out his signature laugh, Wododododo. And then he goes over to Momo, and he comments how Wano now has no samurai and no shogun and no leader in a shogun. And he's like, them fools in the flower capital, they better party their asses off, because it's the last party they're ever getting. Because yet again, in the last chapter, it was last chapter, he revealed that the new Onigashima project is for Onigashima to be the flower capital, and the flower capital is to be like still be the capital of Wano, but that's where they're gonna oversee the labor, or the forced labor that they're gonna put all the citizens of Wano through. And Momo's just hanging there in silence, beat up. But Kaido goes over to him, and yet again, being the asshole that he is, he kind of just, just taunts him, telling him that, hey, I've always felt that something was off. He even chides Momo. Because of his cowardice 20 years ago, he doesn't believe him to be the son of Odin. He then goes on to say that, this execution, it's meant to signify the end of the old Wano. The Shogun, the pride, the dynasties, and all that shit, it's over. This is how I'm running it. From now on, Wano is going to be pretty much, he wants to turn Wano into a new Full-Lead island, another pirate paradise. And he goes on to say that he never did answer the question that he asked. Remember, when the whole thing with Odin's execution was going down, Kaido flew to Curry Castle and held Momo up over the burning castle and asked him what his name was. But Momo was so scared, and he was a child. He still is a child, but he was more of a child then. He hadn't matured the way he has now. He was more so concerned with not getting dropped, him being high, that he didn't really even notice it. He then goes on to say that if he's not Odin's son, he'll call off the whole thing. He'll let him go. He'll apologize. Hey, my bad, dog. I thought you were somebody else. Pretty much, he's doing this to make a fool of him, because I don't think he'd let him go. We've seen that duplicitous shit from him and Orochi time and time again. So I don't even think he'd let him go. I think he's just fucking with him. Like before I kill you, I want to shame you by having you denounce your heritage in shame. Then I want to kill you. I want to send you to your parents and ancestors in shame. So he then proceeds to ask him one more time the exact same question. What is your name? We then pan out to the crowd to where the beasts, they're laughing their asses off. They're like, you're so kind. Like, I read this in sarcasm. I don't believe shit Kaido says. Pretty much, they want him to disgrace his ancestors, his heritage, and to live. They will want him to disgrace that to live. They want him to live. They want him to cling his life like a coward. And they're saying, hey man, you better come up with a funny name. So then we cut to the hall where Luffy, he's informing Yamato of everything that's going on. That the kid that they're about to assassinate is the heir to the Kozuki clan, and that their scabbards are still alive. And Yamato's like, what? Because yet again, this whole time, they've known about the legend, and I bet he's heard about it from his father, but he never really thought anything of it. And then Luffy proceeds to go ahead and use his advanced Ryuo hockey technique to remove the cuffs, and he throws them. And it should be said that Yamato is not a fool, because yet again, he was like, I think my father might be fucking with me just to psychologically keep me in my place, but I don't know. And he even goes on to say that he doesn't think they'll explode, but he just wants to be sure in case. So then we pan out, to a couple different scenes. We have Who's Who with one of his cat girls, and then Ulti in a separate panel running through the hall. They're both being informed that Yamato and Luffy are heading for the main stage, the execution stage. And then we have the transform lower half of the Frankie Shogun running through with Chopper crying and Usopp heading towards the execution stage as well. And then in Chopper's, look through the stethoscope, not the stethoscope, but the telescope, the thing they have in submarines. I can't think of it right now. It's not stethoscope, it's the doctors have. But anyway, he's crying, he's like, there's danger all around. And he's looking like, he's probably saying numbers like, are those giants? And then we see a panel where one of the drunk beasts like, intruders, before being cut down by Kawamatsu and the other scabbards. So pretty much that whole stealth shit is out the window now. Then we see Law with Beppo and his crew, and Kid and Zoro yet again continuing to just fuck shit up. Okay. And then after being asked this question, Momonosuke, he ponders, he takes a second to reminisce in silence. He sees his mother tell him that one day he's going to carry the nation. He sees Luffy proclaim he's going to be king of the pirates. And then he remembers being in a bath with his dad, and his dad explaining what his name meant. Before finally speaking, Momo is a name that means second to none. Everybody's kind of confused, like, what? And then he proclaims, a la Luffy, Momonosuke Kozuki, the man who will be Shogun of Wano. And Kaido's in silence like, this little motherfucker. Before the beast laugh, and Momo, he's trying to contain his sadness and his fear. And he's talking to his parents, saying that he wanted to be a man. He wanted to face them worthily in the afterlife. He wants to see Hiyori again. He's kind of crying. And he doesn't want to die, and he's like, it's shameful for a warrior, but he's a kid. You gotta give him some slack, and you gotta give him credit, because not a lot of people would have did what he did in that situation. Because Kaido is about to smack the shit out of him. But then a giant explosion rocks the halls as Luffy and Yamato are blasted forward. And then Yamato comments he can't believe his dad was really going to kill him. That explosion was from those cups. And that's no little explosion. That's not like the little explosion that the Celestial Dragons use in their collars. This shit would have blown his soul to bits. And then as they hit the ground, Yamato just says, I no longer think of him as my father. I'm done with that motherfucker. And then, Yamato's moving in the position. He's about to go the fuck off. And then everybody's trying to gain their bearings. Everybody's like, what the fuck just happened? And they see Yamato and Luffy standing in there in the aftermath of the explosion. And Luffy comments that they made it in time, but they're not the ones who are going to start this. Yet again, I believe I believe there's one or two options. Most people think he's using his advanced observation haki, and I kind of do as well. But I think Luffy, he senses them coming. But I think he's smart enough to know if I'm going this hard to try to stop this, they're probably going harder. So, but from behind Kaido, I'm telling you, bro, he is gripping that Konombo. He's about to send this little motherfucker to the moon. You see the scabbards coming behind him. King, Queen, and Jack notice. They're saying like the scabbards are alive. Queen's freaking out, making one of his signature freak the fuck out face. Like, where did they come from? And the minks, and then Jack, he's like, the kings of the minks, they're rulers, they're still alive. Because remember, as far as he knew from his attack on Zoe with the curl gas, he thought this shit was over. Like he was gonna finish them off and keep torturing them. He was like, okay, well, whatever, I'm finna go save Dofi. And that's when he got folded. But then we see Izo smooth shoot King's sword out of his hand, and the others prepare to attack. And then Nekomamushi specifically slaps Kaido's club out of his hand. And Kaido, as they're rushing him, he's like, wait a minute. He comes like, is that Kyoshiro? So he's like, wait a minute. So everything's starting to click until a thought pops into their heads. Surrender your name and be as a child. Put your life into this attack. And Kaido just yells at them, your swords are useless. They can't do anything to me. And then he sees a visage of Odin when him and Odin fought, never come back to Wano. And then that's when he puts it together. Well, he knows who they are, but he's like, oh shit. And then, not the scabbards, but the beasts in the crowd, they're like, oh shit. Like, yet again, with everything, everybody's starting to click. And that is when they yell, Tsunachi, snatch, with Zoro taught Momo. And finally, the beasts are like, it's a raid, as they push Kaido off of his stage. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That was One Piece chapter 9. Hold up. Let me make sure I say the right chapter. 986, my name. I thoroughly enjoyed the chapter. Yet, I think out of the chapters this week, it was the least kinetic, at least in terms of fighting. I know in the in the anime they're gonna do this up because currently today's date is just to break the fourth wall and give you a little timestamp on this. It is August the 3rd, and this previous Sunday, which was yesterday, August the 2nd, the new One Piece opening thing came out, which I hate. Which I'm going to go into a little detail another time, but I hate those openings. But we see that Zoro's fight with Kamazo, who we know was killer, is happening. So yeah, just to date this. So I know when they get to this part, it's going to be a lot more kinetic than it is in the manga. But as far as the chapter, I liked it. It was the least kinetic, but I think that it was actually probably the most impactful chapter of the 3 this week. It definitely moved the needle for One Piece because now, after being blue balled and having these near misses and having shit happen, but nobody else be made the wiser, it finally clicks. We're being, well, at least with the Beast Pirates, it finally clicks. We're being attacked. They are on our asses. They are here to kill us. We didn't listen to Wu-Tang. We didn't protect our necks. Neck's been mad exposed. Neck's been exposed as a motherfucker now, and now, they know. But yeah, I think as far as being visually entertaining, it was entertaining for other reasons. We find like all the emotion, all of that came to a head, and now the Scabbards are here. Now they're able to save Momo because they've had to kind of swap, like everybody, like Robin, Jinbei, Nami, Luffy, everybody's kind of had to kind of swallow their pride. Like, bro, we don't want to fuck up the plan, which Luffy kind of already fucked up the plan. But anyway, they've kind of had to, bite their tongues behind their teeth, and now they finally get to act on it, which is very good. And also, Snatchy. I knew that was coming up. I knew it. And yet again, it's further solidifying, which it was already solidified, Zoro's connection with Wano. But yeah, and it's really good to see that it's on now. It's on like Donkey Kong. And shit is really, really about to kick off now. Because we got the Flying Six there. We got all 3 All-Stars who are there, and we got the Beast Pirates, so it's just going to kick off. I really enjoyed this chapter. Not as good as some of the previous chapters, but I still do think it's been pretty good, especially in this arc. Like, the Wano arc has been pretty crazy. It's had some lows, but I don't think this is one of the lowest of the lows. Now for my general thoughts on the chapter. Now, from what I was saying before, when the chapter first started, as far as Odin and Ace not telling the Whitebeard Pirates, I think that needs to be addressed, and I think I have not a unique spin on it, but I think I have something that nobody thought about. I think that when Ace came to Wano, he met Odin, or who he thought was Odin, because we don't know what their interaction was like. We don't know if they were talking for days, or they were talking for hours, minutes, seconds. We don't know. I think what probably happened was Ace came there. He was able to see Yamato, because I think the cups were meant to keep him on Wano, not specifically Onigashima. Because Ace went all the way to Onigashima, and he saw that shit, and he didn't say anything to Whitebeard, especially after potentially hearing it. But let me finish the thought before I go off on all these tangents. I think Ace met Yamato. Yamato probably didn't say, "Oh, I'm trying to be Odin." Him being a nerd fucked them up. Pretty much, Yamato probably said, "I'm Odin, I'm Odin, I'm Odin. I want to come with you, but I can't." And then Odin's like, and then Ace was like, "Hey man, sorry, we'll come back for Tom, we'll probably come back for you." Goes to meet the Whitebeard Pirates, goes through everything that we know he went through with them, and finally joined up. And when he mentions Wano, which probably came up in casual conversation, Marco, Jozu, Vista, and Whitebeard, I think they're some of the oldest, and they were there for when Odin was on the cruise. So when he mentioned Odin, like, "Oh, how's everything in Wano?" It's, Pops, it's not good. They're having a food shortage, but it seems okay. And I met Odin. "Oh, how's he doing?" "Oh, he's doing great." Said something about not being able to leave, like something about his father. So, which they're thinking that they're thinking about Odin's father, Sukiyaki, but rather Yamato was talking about Kaido. So pretty much because Yamato wasn't being himself, that's what fucked everything up. Because if he would have took off that mask, say, yeah, I'm pretending to be Odin, I'm trying to be like Odin. If he didn't say that, I think Whitebeard would have been more keen to, wait a minute, Odin wasn't beautiful. Odin was some weird looking motherfucker with a dish on his head. And you said Odin was what? Nah, hey Marco, get the divisions. We're going to Wano. And also, but that's not on that, but also, with Orochi, I know a lot of people are thinking he's dead or not. Me, just to kind of be succinct here, I think I don't think he's dead. Now, some people will be like, oh yeah, he's not dead. It's impossible for him to be dead. I don't take that approach. I think, honestly and truthfully, I think that Oda, being the god author he is, I think that even if Orochi was dead, like dead for real, I think he can make it work. I think he pretty much would, he'd be blue balling everybody who wanted him to die at their hands. But still, it could be like a lesson. Like if Kurozumi Orochi had let it go, if he'd have never tried all that conniving shit, he'd have lived. But it was his own deceptive ways, it was his own lust for vengeance and destruction that destroyed him. Now, with the Yamato no Orochi, him being an 8-headed serpent, I think there's a good chance that he'll be able to regrow his head. And some people are like, man, Kaido should know, but think about it. Orochi was never the type to get in fights. He's not a warrior. So he would never have had a chance to get his head cut off. He was so damn paranoid, nobody got near him. So he might be alive and not even know it. He might, wake up like 10 minutes later, like, oh my God, what the fuck happened? Because he's never tested the ability. Unlike people like Luffy, Kaido, Big Mom, he's never had a chance to experiment with his powers. The most he's experimented with would be being able to transform and having 8 heads. That's the most he'd probably been able to do. So I definitely don't think he's dead, but I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility for him to be his own undoing. But yes, and with that, we have come to the end of Shonen Showdown. And this week's results, coming in at 3rd place, the bronze medal, I'm definitely going to have to give it to My Hero Academia. Like I said, good looking chapter, but not a lot was done. And it was there. It was there. That's the best and worst I could say about it. It was there, didn't do anything for me. Now, a couple of other chapters back, like I said, we should be reviewing, but hey, moving on. My Hero Academia for a couple of weeks was kind of either silver medal or gold medal here. But yeah, this is a lot of things. This ain't it, Chief. Not a bad chapter. It was just there. But coming in at silver, I'm going to have to say is Black Clover. Black Clover does what it does, and it does what it does well. It's action-packed. We actually got a little bit of power, evolution from Asta. And we got the conclusion to this Dante battle, at least from what it seems, so we can move on. So at least this is a gateway to something else. And the gold medal, in case it wasn't clear, One Piece. We're done being blue-balled. It definitely, had some character developments, people meeting up, and it's about to jump off. We got the Flying Six, the All-Stars, Kaido himself, all the emotion and all that. And I definitely say, even though One Piece is probably the least kinetic out of all the chapters, the least visually entertaining, like, least fight heavy yet against shonen battle manga. Well, I hate saying that. I only say manga, I'm talking about porn. But anyway, manga, I'm definitely gonna say One Piece had it. But thank you everybody for taking time to watch this. I definitely appreciate it. What was your favorite chapter? What was your favorite moment from the chapters? What do you think? Let's go ahead and get the discussion popping in the comment section below. And thank y'all so much. This has been Shonen Showdown, and this has been your boy the D20 signing out. See you guys.